Hello guys, so I'm going to read part 2 of Lyle Crocodile. We left off when they were at the department store and we couldn't find Lyle because he was missing. And we heard cheering, so we were guessing at what we think is going on the next page. Did you have a guess?
Yeah.
What's your guess?
I don't know.
Okay. I remember hearing that Hector P. Valenti and Lyle used to perform together. Are they cheering?
Yeah.
Are they cheering for them?
Yeah.
Let's see. Those voices belong to the huge crowd of shoppers surrounding Hector P. Valenti and Lyle because they had an audience. And because Signor Valenti could not resist showing off, he had persuaded Lyle to join him in a free performance of their old stage act. More, the surprised but delighted shoppers called out, forgetting all about wanting or even needing pajamas. Mrs. Prim caught up with them just in time to hear another voice, charged up with fury, shout, "What's going on here?" That was Mr. Grumps, and when Mr. Grumps saw what was really going on, his face turned red and blue and purple with rage. "Madame," he gasped, "we do not permit crocodiles in this store, you know. Remove him at once." And you, sir," he said, pointing a dagger-like finger at Signor Valenti, "you, sir, are dismissed. Something will have to be done about that crocodile." Those warning words of Mr. Grumps still rang in their ears as they said goodbye to Signor Valenti outside the store. Mr. Grumps at last made good on his threat to do something about that crocodile. The next day he appeared at the Prim's door with papers authorizing Lyle to be committed to the city zoo. "The zoo?" Mrs. Prim exclaimed miserably. "Whatever would Lyle be doing in the zoo?" "He'll be doing whatever it is normal crocodiles are supposed to be doing," snapped Mr. Grumps, who wasn't at all being nice about it. The Prims examined the papers. They appeared to be in order. There was little they could do, at least for the moment, to prevent Mr. Grumps from putting Lyle in the zoo. Lyle's first night was difficult indeed. Poor Lyle. Not wanting to seem unsociable, he decided to join the other crocodiles who were cozily piled together just when he thought he had gotten himself comfortable on top. He awakened to find himself crushed to the very bottom. Lyle's restlessness so annoyed the other crocodiles, they all got up and stomped off in a huff. Lyle was happier during the day when visitors came. He amused everyone with his unusual tricks, and before long he was the biggest attraction at the zoo. Joshua and Mrs. Prim visited regularly, arms laden with gifts, games, toys, and the Turkish caviar Lyle loved so much. Mrs. Prim did her best to smile and appear cheerful, but just couldn't hide her concern. "Are you feeling all right, my dear?" she would ask. "Are you getting enough rest? Are you making friends with the other crocodiles? Do the lions keep you awake at night? Is the floor too damp? Do the flies pester you?" Lyle shook his head yes and no, depending on the question. He tried to put on a brave front, but Mrs. Prim knew very well he was unhappy and fought back her tears. One night, a new keeper appeared at Lyle's cage. Surprise, surprise! The new keeper turned out to be none other than Hector P. Valenti, star of stage and screen. "Shh!" whispered Signor Valenti. "I've come to rescue you." Signor Valenti unlocked the door of the cage, and astonished Lyle was set free. "You can't go home again, Signor Valenti," said Signor Valenti. When they had put the zoo behind them. Signor Valenti was bursting with ideas. We'll put our old act together, he said. We'll fly to Australia. They'll love us in Australia. Lyle groaned. Oh, the very thought of seeing the house on East 88th Street again was grim indeed, and too much for him to endure. Signor Valenti read his thoughts and decided Lyle should have one last look at the house on East 88th Street. Approaching the now sleeping street, they were suddenly met with a roll of dense smoke. Uh-oh. Smoke? The smoke, they realized with horror, was coming from Mr. Grump's house. While Signor Valenti ran to signal the alarm, Lyle broke into the house and rescued the sleeping occupants. Wow. You should never go into a burning house, though. That's what firefighters do. Lyle sure was brave. A gasping, frightened Mr. Grumps and his cat were led to the safety of the street. The Prims and the entire neighborhood were awake to witness Lyle's heroism. Mr. Grumps couldn't thank him enough. Ladies and gentlemen, said Mr. Grumps to the crowd of onlookers, Lyle is the bravest, kindest, most wonderful crocodile in the whole wide world. I would consider it a privilege and a pleasure to have him as our neighbor once more. Hooray, shouted the Prims. Hooray, shouted the crowd. Lyle moved back to the house on East 88th Street that very night. Several days later, a farewell party was given by the Prims for Signor Valenti, who was leaving to seek fortune and adventure in Australia. Remember, said Mr. Grumps, speaking to Signor Valenti, should you change your mind about leaving, a job in my store will always be yours just for asking. We need people with your kind of talent and ability. Everyone smiled happily. Even Loretta. Oh, the cat likes Lyle now. So, Mr. Grumps wasn't very kind to Lyle, but Lyle still went in and saved him. And then, Mr. Grumps and even Loretta, they figured out finally that Lyle really is a kind crocodile. Right? I hope you guys enjoyed this book, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.